And this one has something in it. Tyler, are you ready to touch it?
Sure.
You know, I think anglers are good at understanding where a bass is and how to catch that fish, but oftentimes we have no idea what's actually inside the fish we target. So in today's video, I dissected a largemouth bass on camera so you don't have to.
But before we can actually dissect a bass on camera for you guys, we have to capture one. So we have captured our resident science man, Mr. Stephen Barton here. Y'all have seen him on the channel several times.
We live in a catch and release culture, and that's wrong.
We're gonna spend a few minutes fishing to get our test subject to cull out of this lake here. We're on a beautiful West Texas lake that Stephen manages. And so we're gonna kind of talk about fisheries management as we catch some fish, cull some fish, and then show you, as I talked about in the intro, maybe some stuff that you've never thought about before about the bass that we target. Now, for anybody who hasn't seen our interviews together, you talked a little bit about fisheries biology and your history with it. Kind of talk to somebody maybe about the opportunities there are in the fisheries biology field. So you manage lakes and you have a good understanding of how to stock fish and cull fish. What other opportunities are there for somebody who's maybe in high school and has no idea what they want to do, but they didn't know this kind of thing existed?
Great. So you can divide the industry into private sector, public sector, and university.
Okay.
So if you are a fisheries biologist and you work for a university, you're either a researcher or you're somebody who's a professor. That's pretty self-explanatory. You need an advanced degree, master's, and if you want to be a researcher, you're going to need a doctorate.
Got it.
So that's more in lab, some in the field. It takes a lot of time, of course, to get those degrees.
I gotcha.
If you're going to work in the private sector, you don't necessarily have to have a specific degree. Any background in fisheries or wildlife would be preferred. You're going to work on, of course, private bodies of water. You're going to do a lot of stocking fish, a lot of vegetation control, installing habitat, feeders, and air systems.
Yeah.
So you're going to be mainly field work. And then for your public sector, your state agency, you have different levels. So you have fisheries technicians. Technicians have a bachelor's degree typically. Doesn't have to be, once again, in fisheries necessarily, but that is, fish and wildlife is kind of preferred.
Okay.
Those are going to be the people that maintain equipment, go out and collect fish. They're going to do a lot of field work.
Yeah.
They're going to be on your net boats. They're going to do your mapping, things like that.
And that's on your public waters.
Public waters.
Okay.
And then there will be fisheries biologists that work in the districts as well. Those are their supervisors who, once again, they go on like the electrofishing, they write the reports, they make the recommendations.
Got it.
Then there's specialists within every state agency. Those would be people that specialize in a specific species or habitat.
Okay.
So we would have catfish, striper, largemouth or black bass.
Got it.
You'd have specialists in all those.
So there's way more opportunities than just stocking bass ponds.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially when we're talking about the public sector.
Okay.
You have more than our angling group. We think of bass fishermen, specifically tournament fishermen. We think, man, they're driving around in wrapped boats. Tyler's got one. They're driving around in wrapped boats and they're spending a lot of money. But they make up one of the smaller parts of bass fishermen.
Okay.
Recreational bass fishermen make up a larger part.
Now, this fish too big to cull out of here?
So in this lake, we try to cull fish under 16 inches. That's going to be right at what we would release. So you can go ahead and release that today. It's got a good body condition. We are at the end of summer. We're in August. So it's starting to get hot. So we don't expect them to be exactly 100%, but we saw a little belly on that fish, so we can release it.
Okay.
We're gonna look for something that is a cull fish, something around 14 inches.
Got it. Because we do have to catch one.
We have to catch them.
To open her up.
Yep.
And show you guys all the cool aspects of that. So how can somebody get information on how to get involved fisheries biology-wise?
Great question. I would start with, if I'm a student, I would start with either professional organizations like American Fisheries Society.
Okay.
They have a program called the Hutton Scholars. Those are high school students that get to shadow a fisheries biologist in their local community for the summer.
Cool.
And then they meet, there's like a big conference that they do at the end of the year, talk about what they've learned. That's a great foot in the door. If you're not going to want to volunteer all summer long, there are summer camps as well as your state agency. So you start with American Fisheries Society because that's what we're a member of.
Okay.
There's also like the Lake Management Society, things like that.
Got it.
But American Fisheries Society is the one I'd start with.
Okay.
Then your local biologist is always going to be somebody that you can volunteer with.
And they have their information on a public website.
Absolutely.
Somewhere. Okay.
So you look up your favorite reservoir, whatever you live near, you find which district that is, you look for the district supervisor.
Okay.
Contact the district supervisor. Tell them your age. That's going to be really important because that dictates how you can volunteer.
I see.
What you can actually do. And then they'll give you sampling days when they're going to go out electrofishing or pulling nets.
Yeah.
They'll give you fish stocking days so you can go actually participate in that. You could do the same thing with the private sector. If you can find somebody who owns a lake management business or fish stocking business, you can volunteer with them or maybe get a summer internship. We take 2 interns every summer. And it's really been something that allows me to kind of work through and find the right biologist for my company. Yep.
That's cool. That is so fun. Let's catch another one. Oh, come get it.
Got it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Come on now.
Come on now. Too big to coal, Tyler.
We're not coaling that one.
You're not going to coal that one.
Nope. Come on now. Yes, sir. Good job, Tyler. Got a jump. Oh, he was not even hooked that well, so grateful to have him. Oh, man.
Yep.
There we go. There we go. I'm catching too many big ones.
That's all right. Catch the big ones.
Uncle Steve.
Make me look good. It's always great when we have to catch a dozen to find a coal.
Yes, that is true. Oh, man. Goodness, what a fun lake. Thank you, buddy.
This is always the fun part when you fish a well-managed lake.
It's hard to find coals. That's good. We got her, and she's swimming at us. There we go. Oh, not all big.
It's the one.
Do we have one?
I think you might have one.
Do we have a color? Get in here. What are we thinking?
Let's grab your measuring board and let's see how long it is.
Okay, okay.
I think it's gonna be the one. You've done it, Tyler.
Let's go. Science. Oh, 14. Hey, let's go.
Get her. So a lake like this, Tyler, we're pulling 4, 5, maybe 600 of those out every year.
Oh my goodness.
So you've got one. Congratulations. It's gonna be a long day.
All right, here we go. There we go. Running at me. Ultra fast. Hey!
Oh, yeah, that's a coal fish.
Oh, it's a coal fish.
Yeah, you make that coal fish.
Get it out of here. We're gonna make our lakes better today.
There you go.
Well, we're gonna make this guy's lake better today.
There you go.
Oh, and he's also blind in one eye.
Yeah, he's time to go. He's very skinny for what he should be.
Poor guy. We're gonna put those bass to use on our plate. So we've caught a few fish, caught a few coal fish, which is great.
Yes,
you just told me that we need like 600 of them a year, so
right.
We are not that far ahead. Although, hold up. He's kind of chunky. He's kind of chunky.
Probably not that one.
Okay, not this one. Oh yeah, he's very chunky.
Got to let that one go, Tyler.
That one got some genetics. As somebody who works in the fishing space, who also enjoys fishing, is it still fun to be out here, even though maybe you're watching lakes develop and you're watching other people catch fish, but you're not in it yourself so often?
Right. I think it might be more fun.
Okay.
Because what happens is, even like this lake, there's certain areas where I sample every year and I catch the same fish.
Yeah.
And you know it's the same fish and you watch it grow. And then you have the opportunity to say, hey, Tyler, cast over there. I know there's a fish over there.
Yeah.
And give you that experience of catching a fish that I know. But also I do a lot of bait testing for companies. There's no better person than a private biologist that's going to go to stocked lakes to send a prototype to and say, what do you think?
Yeah.
How's a hook stay in this bait?
That's true. That's true.
We do a lot of that. We do a lot of that. So
that's fun.
I get plenty of time on the water.
Okay. Well, good. Glad to hear. Oh, this one's blind. We got a blind one, Steven.
Both eyes?
No, just one eye. He's got a whole cataract.
Yeah, and it's very skinny. We're going to call that fish.
We're going to cull this fish. Okay. Explain why.
In a fishery like this is a trophy fishery. We're trying to grow fish to an advanced size, and that one has a limitation that's going to affect its growth. We see that it's skinny. That's a fish that's underweight. So you could consider it to be a fish that can't compete in this environment. So I've got to manage my resources. I have to pull 600 fish out.
Yeah.
That's one that although it's a little bit long, should come out.
Got him. And that cataract on its eye is not going to go away.
It's not going to go away.
Okay.
It could be a hook injury. That could be a parasite injury.
Well, thank you, buddy, for science. So the fishing has commenced. We have ourselves a bass, and just to make sure we're good for YouTube monetization, I hope the thumbnail and title are good enough. We did not show the dissecting process, and also wanted to make sure Steven could get it perfect for you guys to see on camera. So we have about a 2.5 pound bass here.
Right. It took forever, but we did it.
Perfect bass right here to show you guys the external and internal anatomy to hopefully make you a better angler in some way. Maybe this is just a fun science lesson and you're gonna show this to your classmates if you're a science teacher at a high school. That's kind of the whole goal of this video, is to educate about a bass. So Steven, where should we start?
Well, I don't want to be too simple, but I think it's okay to be a little bit. Of course, this is the mouth, Tyler, right?
Yes.
we know it's a largemouth because whenever we close the mouth, the upper jaw goes past the eye.
Okay.
That means largemouth.
Great.
Okay. On top of the mouth right here, a small hole, we call those nares, be like a nostril.
Okay.
and then the eye. Then we move back, we have the opercular. That's the hard protection that protects the gills.
Okay.
So we move further back. First we have the pectoral fin. Below the pectoral fin, we have the pelvic fin. So there's 2 pelvic fins, one on each side. Of course, there's a pectoral fin on each side. As we pull the fish up, the first dorsal, we call that the spiny dorsal. In all your bass species, you want to notice if there's a notch between them. So do we have a definitive stop between our first dorsal and second dorsal? We see on the largemouth, we have a definitive notch. Then this is the second dorsal or the soft dorsal. We see a black line that runs this fish's back right here. If you get real close on it, you can see those are actually small little pores. That's the lateral line across that fish.
Okay.
So keep moving back. We have the anal fin, single anal fin. It does have a couple spines, 3 of them down here. And then we have the caudal fin and the tail.
Great.
So that's the quick, dirty external anatomy.
Awesome.
Now we want to open her up and we want to look at the internal anatomy, right?
Let's do it.
Now we've opened the bass. Now I want to show you the internal anatomy. Once again, the easiest way to start is from the external, from the mouth. So if you can imagine, we've all hooked a fish. We've seen inside of a mouth before. We see where the esophagus actually is, the closure of the throat.
Correct. That
esophagus immediately comes through. I've got to move the liver out of the way into the stomach. The stomach is right here. So the fish's anatomy and digestive system goes esophagus to stomach.
Okay.
Almost immediately.
Okay.
So whenever it swallows something, it's going into the stomach right away. That also means that whenever it needs to regurgitate something, it's very easy to do.
Okay.
So a lot of times the defense mechanism, you'll see fish expel their stomachs and they'll spit it out. Part of our fishery science, whenever we're doing the dissection of fish like this, we can open the stomach up, or we do what's called gastric lavage, where we hold the mouth open, we put water into the stomach, and everything comes back out.
Okay.
So we can see what the fish eats. But that's the whole stomach right here. It's this white organ, and this one has something in it. Tyler, are you ready to touch it?
Sure.
I didn't bring you gloves. Go ahead, touch
Okay.
it. That's the stomach, and you can feel something in there.
Yeah,
right?
there is definitely something in there.
As you leave the stomach, you have intestines, and sorry, there's going to be a little bit of membrane here, but you have the intestines. That's going to send the food out as it's digested. Now, it's a very simplistic stomach, so there's actually an external organ called pyloric ceca. That's these little finger-like strands. Pyloric ceca pulse around the stomach to help mechanically digest the food because it's hard for that to digest. Now,
now there's still chemicals.
There's still
in bacteria that are digesting, but it has...
Right. Still stomach acid,
okay.
But what you have to have is that pyloric ceca to make that mechanism for
okay.
actually it to digest.
Interesting.
All right. Now there's a few other little things we see in here, like these guys.
Ooh.
These guys are actually a roundworm. So that's not an internal organ, that's a parasite that's in this fish. So we do have some parasites within the abdomen here. Let's see if we can get one for you. There you go. There is a roundworm. And there's a dozen or so in the abdomen of this fish.
Okay.
A lot of times when you see those super skinny fish, they'll have hundreds. We do stock red ear sunfish to try to eliminate parasites in our private lakes.
And how would stocking that eliminate a parasite?
So part of this parasite's life cycle, and the majority of parasites that are on our fish, actually part of their life cycle is to live in a snail. And snails live on vegetation, they consume vegetation. Now red ear eat primarily snails, so we start to eliminate them from the population.
Got it.
So set that guy to the side. As we move a little further back, it is August, right?
Yes.
And we see this fish is a female. I know it's a female because as I look at her ovaries, there is a yellow hue to that, right? Because those are the eggs being developed for this year.
Oh, wow.
So this is a mature fish, 14 inches mature, and she has her ovaries with eggs being developed right away.
Already in August.
Yep, so they almost continuously have eggs. It's kind of a misnomer that they only do it during spawning season.
Okay.
They immediately just start to develop eggs, and we talked about in some of our past videos, fall spawns. So this fish could, if these eggs became ripe because it was seasonally it was correct, this fish could spawn this fall. It's not going to because we see a high density population here.
Got it.
But they're developing them already, so they'll be ready next year.
Well, very cool.
Okay, now one of the most important parts of a fish is the swim bladder. And the swim bladder is hidden behind these ribs. It's an air pocket. It's an actual organ, but it's an air pocket, and you can see I can kind of push on it and you can see the air moving through it. Now, bass, they do not fill their swim bladders with their mouth.
Okay.
So they don't gulp air. the air that fills the swim bladder comes through a process, through a gas gland that takes the oxygen out of the blood. So whenever we see a fish caught extremely deep, that swim bladder is expanding, but it's not expanding because it's gulping air. It's expanding because the pressure around the fish is changing.
Got it.
Just like if you were a scuba diver, you know pressures at depth, they change. So the swim bladder will expand. Now it's fixed against the upper part of the abdomen in these ribs. So it can only expand down into the abdomen where your organs are. So it's going to push down on things like the stomach, the liver.
I see.
And maybe the heart, depending on how expanded it becomes.
Oh, so is that the reason why when you catch a deep fish, oftentimes they will float belly up?
That's exactly
because the bladder has
pushed.
pushed.
The swim bladder is expanding.
Interesting.
Yep. And so then there would be the process of fizzing the fish, which is the removal of air from the swim bladder. And we see a lot of times guides on how to do that. And you look at this pectoral fin.
Yeah.
You line that pectoral fin up, and you count usually 5 scales. You put it at an angle, then you straighten it down. And if you straighten it down and this was expanded, you would land right in the swim bladder.
Okay. So you don't want to fizz them through the back of the throat.
Correct. Because if I go through the back of the throat, we see the back of the throat here, right?
Yes.
If you go on the top, you're going to miss the swim bladder. You're going to go spinal cord.
Okay.
So you go on the bottom, the swim bladder would have to be in this area, expanded, and you're going to have liver, stomach, right in your way. So you're going to go through organs to get there.
Interesting.
Yep. Now up front, there's also this membrane right here, and that's where the heart is contained, right underneath the gills. Yep. And this big guy right here is the liver. We do see some white spotting on this liver. Those are also internal parasites of the liver.
And are they beneficial or harmful?
Well, the parasites are never going to be beneficial.
Okay.
They are always, being parasitic means you're taking resources from whatever organism you're on, your host. So it's definitely deterring from this fish's ability to absorb nutrient. It's taking those things away. And being in the liver, that's exactly what it's doing. But that's the real quick internal anatomy. Most important, simple digestive system. You have a swim bladder that's not filled by gulping air. It comes from the bloodstream. We see that this is a mature female. She's starting to become gravid. You've learned what pyloric ceca is.
Pyloric ceca.
That's your scientific word of the day. That helps in digestion. So really cool. Any questions on it?
Man, I think from now on I'm going to release a fish and maybe I'll give it a little thread fin and I'll say, here you go, pyloric ceca.
Ceca. Get to work.
Already messing up. Get to work, guys. Again, it doesn't help me become a better angler, but it helps me more understand the fish that I target and have kind of an appreciation for that. We call them sometimes, they're dumb as rocks. They're a bass, they bite anything, but they're so complex and there's so many things going on internally that my respect, I think, has increased for a bass just seeing how it's built.
Well, let's make you a better angler real quick.
Okay.
Let's do that. Let's say you let a fish swallow your hook.
Okay, right? Great.
So the hook is down here and it's going to go through the stomach membrane. You see?
You're talking about when it's all the way past the crunchers.
If it's past the crushers,
you've
let it swallowed.
Okay.
You should cut that hook off because you're likely, if you've set the hook into something else internal.
I see.
You should probably harvest that fish as well. It'd be tough for it to live.
Got it.
So the other thing that we have to be aware of whenever we're hooking fish is where the hook lands in the gills. And I think the gills are fun because they have a couple parts to them. The spiny part and that first gill, those are rakers.
Rakers?
Yep. So rakers, what they do is they help adjust food and make it go towards the esophagus where those crushers are and send the food down.
Totally.
They also protect the gill filaments. The red part is a filament. Now, how the fish's gills actually work is they take water from the mouth and they pulse it through the opercular flap and out. In the gills, the blood runs the opposite direction. So it runs counter current. So as the gills are running towards the mouth, the blood, the water's going past it, and the gill filaments can grab oxygen out of that water.
Got it.
They can also release waste gases like ammonia and urea. So often we see like fish pee whenever we pull them out of the water. Well, they're actually letting most of their urea out through their gills as they breathe in and out.
Interesting.
Yep, this is also why we see a lot of people, especially for smallmouth, moving away from using any kind of cold tag in the mouth.
Okay.
Because you're affecting how does the mouth open and close, therefore how does water go past the gill.
Got it.
So we're seeing that any kind of cold tag in the mouth slows down that respiration and can cause them distress.
I see.
The gills are super important. Now, let's say for some reason we had a hook get into a gill.
Yeah.
The very best thing is to put it back in the water where it can pump water over the gill.
Okay.
Because that blood going against current creates clotting and stops it from bleeding.
Okay.
You can help this by just figure eighting it in the water.
Not back and forth.
Nope, figure eight. Keep the water going the right direction over the gills.
Okay.
But releasing it is always the best option.
Yeah.
You're going to put it in your live well. Doing the figure eight might help right before you release it because it is going to secrete blood until that clots.
Okay, got it. Yep. How quickly does a bass injury, let's just say, clot?
Oh, within seconds.
Within seconds.
Yep.
In the water.
They're designed to be in the water to clot in the water.
Got it. Okay.
Now, open wound takes much longer.
And this may be a question for the interview, but I guess we're talking about bleeding fish now or unhealthy fish. Where does stuff like G juice and other please release me powder, where does that kind of stuff fit, if at all, in fish rehabilitation?
Yeah, so the hard part is none of them have their active ingredients on it.
Okay.
So I can't tell you what's in it, therefore I can't tell you what it's doing.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and that's because you would have to have it approved by the FDA, because technically all fish caught in a public reservoir are food fish. They could be in the human food chain, so the FDA actually regulates what you can treat that fish with. Currently, what's approved is pure oxygen, ice, and table salt. Those are the three things.
So the ones that I mentioned are not approved by the FDA?
Correct.
Okay, got it.
Correct.
Then why are they recommended in tournament organizations?
No tournament organization actually recommends them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
If you look across any of the tournament release information, the best management practices, you won't find the use of any of those chemicals.
Okay.
And that's simply because we don't know what's in them.
Got it. You learn so much hanging out with Steven.
I hope so.
I do, and I hope you guys do as well. I hope you enjoyed this video. I think we're going to have a lot of videos over the years of different fisheries techniques and you know, how to understand your body of water better. But this was just one that I think we had to do to, one, have some fun catching some bass together, because we hardly get to do that ever, but to get to show you guys what the fish we target look like, both on the outside and on the inside, and I hope it helps to make you guys a better angler. So thanks to Steven for joining us on this episode. If you want to see, this will probably come out after our interview, so we'll have two different interviews here, one in this corner and one in this corner in front of our heads, and we talk about all kinds of topics, from tournament mortality rate to whether or not you should catch and release bass or eat them at your house. Lots of cool topics there. My name's Tyler. Thank you, Steven, and we'll see you guys next time right here on TRF.